Yeah, it should be recording now. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see that.
Perfect, good.
Yeah.
I'm going to be going through the slides. Very briefly, I'm Jorge, or Dr. Jorge Emilio Nunez. You will see a few logos here. I'm going to be talking about two of them later. Juris North, the discussion group I lead, and then the Manchester Law Journal. We have Lindsay and Sam, both editors-in-chief of this Manchester Law Journal. So I'm going to end up this conversation today with an invitation. My contact details. Again, this is my own blog, my Twitter account, and my email. Feel free to send me any email at any point. We can book meetings. I'm going to be with you 6 sessions, 3 lectures and 3 seminars. However, you can contact me by email, and I'm more than happy to have one-to-one sessions with you. Again, some of you know me already, but I prefer to tell you all these things. The idea today, I'm going to be brief in terms of the title. We have a very long title: Advanced Legal Studies, Skills, and Research 2. Advanced Research. I don't know why it's so long, the title. My plan today, I'm going to mainly talk about the kind of assessment you will expect, what kind of things we expect from you, how to pass this assessment, which is simple. But my main point, and what I try to leave with you, is how you will be able to write a dissertation. And that's why the workshops will be very practical. My plan with these 3 workshops is for you to be able, by mid-February, to have completed the research proposal. So it will give you as well about a week to edit your proposal. So if you come to all the 3 workshops, you should end up with a draft, with a complete draft. I'll put an example. Next week, I'm planning to cover with you the title, the aims, and the objectives. So you should finish next week on Wednesday having written your title, your aims, and objectives. You will have time to edit yourself, but what I'm trying to say, you will complete part of your research proposal next week. And so on. The second seminar and the third seminar, you should have been finished with the complete research proposal. Very briefly here, because you should have covered this with math, and all this information is online, so I'm not going to waste your time and my time here. You have support at MMU, the main one they have, and the one I would recommend if you struggle with your research, our law librarians. By now you should know both of them, Stephen and Corinne. If you have any problem with your books, let me know. I'll put you in touch with them. If not, send them directly an email. Everything is online right now, especially with the lockdown. One thing I want to say, and I'm going to cover online resources. There is no excuse because of the pandemic, not to have a very good research. And I'm very strict about this kind of thing because I do my research as well, and I publish. So I know you can do your research perfectly well from China to Brazil using online resources, and I'm going to refer to this. However, if you want dedicated help, we do have Corinne and Stephen, and they will be happy to help you. The complete unit, the idea, you cover the basics, how to do legal research with math last term. I did only one class for you last term. When was it? I think it was in December. The idea, again, critical analysis, critical reading, critical evaluation, and so on. Very briefly, what you should be able to do when you finish this is, first of all, to do a thorough academic research. What do I mean by thorough? This is not MMU, LLB. This is not a degree. This is an LLM degree. And I tend to apply international standards. I go a bit beyond MMU. So I'm going to push you to do a thorough research and to use not only Westlaw, LexisNexis. This is fine for a very simple research. I'm going to push you, to use other search engines and to widen your horizons. The idea is not only to do legal research, but socio-legal research. That is why I'm going to cover very briefly what you covered with math last time, but I'm going to include some other things. The final result should be your own work. A mini book. The ambition would be, for the future, those who want to maybe become a doctor in law, a PhD doctor in law, to be able to write your book, as I did with my books as well. And I'm going to refer to my own research. I always put myself as, as an example, not to show off, just to show you that if I can do it, you can do it as well. What I'm going to expect from you, from all of you, the only thing you have to remember today, this date, 26th of February, 2021. That is the deadline. Of course, you can apply, and you may have your exceptional factors. Fingers crossed, you won't have any problem. And again, if all goes well, if you come mainly to our workshops by mid-February, you should have your research proposal. Again, try not to miss any of the workshops or the seminars. The only thing I want to I'm going to highlight very few things today. The one thing I want you to remember right now and write it down, the date, Friday, the 26th of February. I think the time is 5 to 9 p.m., the deadline. This is an automatic deadline set by Turnitin. So please make sure you do that. The proposal is very short. It used to be a bit longer. It used to be up to 3,000. This academic year, Damien decided to ask for 2,000 words, not including footnotes and bibliography. Again, I'm going to talk about all this in more detail later. This is just, the first slide. I'm talking about the proposal. 2,000 words. This is very short. You have to be very strategic in the way you put all this information. And then this will lead to your final dissertation when you meet your supervisors. The structure I'm going to expect from you, it's exactly the same. A title, the aim, objectives, background, methodology, and bibliography. Usually you won't need appendices. This is usually for a PhD thesis. But I'm going to refer to all these elements. Today, right now I'm going to explain all of them. Later today, this session will cover, in particular, title, aims, objectives, and bibliography. Why? Because we will cover on Wednesday next week, a week on Wednesday, we will cover all these three, and ideally, if you come to the session, you will complete all these three by yourself. Title. The idea for you is that's why I said very few tasks for next week. The idea is by now you should know what kind of problem you may want to solve, what kind of area of law you may want to research, and so on. You should be able to put that very shortly in a sentence. Again, very shortly in a sentence. Do not try to sound too clever or to add too many elements to your title. I'm going to put later examples in my own publication. The main point for your title, explanation, self-explanatory. I should be able to read your title and it should be very easy to me to make sense of what your research should be about. You may add a subtitle as well. I put this one as an example because I borrowed this from a colleague of mine, the transition to the Supreme Court, Justice in an Age of Austerity. Although it's a good title, I don't like it. First of all, I have no idea which jurisdiction we talk about. I have no idea if we talk about the UK, China, Brazil, or any other country. So I would like to see a title a bit more assertive. And then Justice in an Age of Austerity. I'd like to see at least between brackets or something like that. What is this age of austerity? Are we referring to the 70s? Are we referring to the 80s? Are we referring to current austerity, which means 2020, 2021? Although the title is fine, it's not that clear. I'd like to see more precision. That will be an advice here. I'm going to talk about the title later in more detail, but just to show you what I mean. The aim. If you already identify the area of research, you want to follow, the kind of problem you may want to solve, the novelty you may bring to law, political science, or any other science, you should be able to translate that problem into a solution. Suppose the kind of work I follow recently has to do, but recently for more than 10 years, has to do with trying to put solutions to the Falklands, Malvinas conflict, Gibraltar, Kashmir, Jerusalem, and so on. I call them territorial disputes or sovereignty conflicts. So my aim, my ambition is to solve territorial conflict in a certain way. Yes, I'm trying to be very brief. So what I'm trying to say, you should identify a problem. You should identify an area within the law, a precise area. You should identify your interest. You can only decide. You are the author, and then you have to tell us how you want to target, how you want to deal with, how you want to solve that particular area, problem, or issue. That should be your aim. Only one aim, especially if we talk about an LLM dissertation of the kind we have here at MMU. It's a very short dissertation, 10,000 words. Your final one, again, not with me, with your own supervisor later on this academic year. You will write a dissertation. The dissertation is very short in reality, 10,000. So that's why my recommendation would be to set one aim only. Don't think of 2 or 3 aims. You will need a book. You will need a PhD dissertation for that. For the LLM here at MMU, I will recommend only one aim. Different when we talk about the objectives. If I'm telling you my main aim will be to solve territorial disputes in such a way, again, I'm not explaining what way, it would take me too long. I'm going to have to set different goals, smaller, different objectives in order to achieve that aim. If I want to solve territorial disputes, one of my objectives would be to define, to conceptualize key elements such as state, sovereignty, and territorial disputes. That will be one objective. The other objective could be to set policy guidelines in order to solve territorial disputes, and so on. So what I'm trying to say, all my objectives have to do with my aim, yes? So if I want to solve them, how I am going to solve these territorial disputes? By setting individual objectives, yes? My recommendation here, some people say 5, some people say 6 objectives for an LLM dissertation at MMU. I would say 3 to 5. 3, a few, 3, yeah, I would aim for 5. And again, I'm going to talk about this particular slide in more detail later, because the complete session today will be about title, aims, and objectives. I'm just trying to give you a view of what I'm going to expect from you. This has to do with the rest of your proposal, and I'm going to cover this in our next lecture, our second lecture. Mainly the background. I would expect to see from you a structure. I'd like to see whether you're going to include an overall conclusion, an overall introduction, and whether you're going to think of chapters. My recommendation will be not more than 3 chapters. Some of your supervisors will say 4. And again, I'm going to explain this in more detail when we have the session in 2 weeks' time, our second lecture. Apply common sense. If you have 10,000 for your final dissertation, you cannot have 4 well-written chapters. If I'm thinking about an introduction and a conclusion, and I have only 10,000 words as the limit, I will think of 1,000 for the introduction, 1,000 for the conclusion. That would leave me 8,000 for the rest. You don't even have 3,000 per chapter if I'm talking about 3 chapters. Yes. So again, I'm going to teach you how to do this. What I will do, it's very simple. If I have 10,000 words as the complete word limit, I would literally take a blank piece of paper and I will divide each of the sections and how many words I'm going to dedicate to each section, each chapter, each subsection. Literally a skeleton, only with numbers. Yeah. Again, I'm going to explain this in more detail when we have our second lecture. My recommendation, again, would be an introduction for the complete dissertation, a conclusion for the complete dissertation, and then the dissertation to have 3 chapters top, plus introduction, plus conclusion. Literature review. I'll refer to this. You should have covered this with math in advanced research 1. The idea is for you, this is an LLM. Can you see the last point here, novelty? That is the difference between an LLM and the PhD. With a PhD, you should bring to the science, in this case law, a new point of view, a new solution, or maybe you target a theory that already exists and apply that theory in a new way to an existing problem. Yes, that has to do with a PhD. We don't ask you here at the LLM level to bring something new to the science. If you do, even better, because that would pave the way to your PhD. If you don't hit the novelty, you still have to hit the literature review. What do we mean by that? You should be able to be the expert on the particular field you research. If I'm telling you my aim is, the research of territorial disputes, I should be in the room, the person who knows the person in the room, in the world actually, and especially when we talk about the UK, the person in the world who knows the most about territorial dispute. That is the ambition with an LLM. You become the expert. I am going to guide you, in terms of the structure, in terms of how to write your sentences, in terms of how to do your research. You should be the expert when it comes to the particular theme, the particular problem, the particular issue you research. That is why the literature review is so important. If you hand in your bibliography and you only add 1 page, I can tell you that is not a good research. Yes, so the literature review will be extremely, extremely brief. Not for me. I mean, that would be for me clearly a low mark. But I'm talking about you, especially in a country like the UK. We are a global country. So you have to do your best to bring a very thorough research in terms of sources. If you want to research a particular issue, you should spend most of your time reading about that particular issue and gathering sources about that particular issue. In parallel, you may start writing. Yeah. For the proposal, because this is not your dissertation, you will have to meet your supervisor and you will have time to read your dissertation. For the proposal, I still expect to see bibliography. If not thorough, as in the case of the final dissertation, I would expect at least to see 2 or 3 pages of sources at this level, the proposal. When I sent my proposal, I must have had 5 to 10, I can't remember, my PhD proposal I'm talking, pages of sources. So I would like to see 2 or 3 pages at least for a pass, and not for a high mark of sources. Justification. Even though you may not talk about novelty, I need to know why you do your research. Yes, why your research is so important. In fact, when I'm hoping in the future some of you complete a PhD, and a few of you may even publish your PhD. One of the things your publisher will be asking you why your book is so important that we need to publish. Yes, and people will buy. So think in those terms when you write any paper, academic paper, I'm talking, any academic dissertation. Why is your research important to us? Who? Us. The reader. Yes. Why should people bother to read your dissertation? That is the why. Yes. So you have to justify, and that will be part of your research background, why your research is important to the science. What are you bringing in terms of solutions, in terms of issues, what kind of gaps you discover in the law, and so on. Yes, and then again, methodology. I talked about that last term, and I know Mas had a complete class about this. So I'm going to refer very briefly today and in my next lecture in terms of primary sources, secondary sources. In particular, today I'm going to refer to search engines. Again, I'm going to go beyond Westlaw and LexisNexis just to show you that there are many other ways to do your academic research, socio-legal research. The one thing I want to say, you will have to explain in your proposal and of course in your final dissertation what kind of research you are using. In the sense, is it only socio-legal? Are you applying black letter law? Is it a hybrid kind of research in which you may use elements of law and another science? Suppose my research has to do with legal science and as well with political science and international relations. So I applied two different methods, one coming from law, one coming from political science and international relations. You will have to explain only a sentence or two because, again, the research proposal will be very brief, but you will have to explain what kind of research methodology you are applying. Again, we'll cover that later. So are we clear? I'm going to go back here. This was a very brief introduction about the kind of structure I expect to see on, when is it? Friday, the 26th of February. Yes, I expect to see the title, aims, objectives, background, methodology, and bibliography. Today we will cover bibliography, title, aims, and objectives. And next week in the workshop or the seminar, you will be writing your title, your aims, and objectives. And you will bring to the class next week at least one article coming from your research and a brief summary of that article. If you bring more articles, even better. Let me come here. The dissertation research project. That is why the proposal is so important. Because depending on your proposal, you will come up with the final dissertation. The dissertation, as I said before, it is very brief at MMU. It's only 10,000 words. And in fact, they changed the regulations, and I think all of you have the option to do, instead of one dissertation, to do two short articles, 5,000 words per article. The idea behind the research, as I said before, when I was talking about justification, novelty, and so on, I talk about literature review. I told you, you should be the expert, you should become the expert. The dissertation at LLM level has to do with a piece of research in which you show the depth of your knowledge, yes? Not the knowledge of that particular issue broadly. No, it is your own knowledge about that particular issue. The idea behind this, you have to prove to us, the readers, yes, that you are the person who knows the most about that particular issue. You choose the topic. My recommendation here, and again, you will talk to your own supervisor when you have your own supervisor. My recommendation, if you are going to spend that much time, you're already spending money, you're already spending time, I would be inclined to suggest that you do a research focus on a particular theme of your interest, or maybe practical to your future career. If you already know, I know some people here, you may want to be a barrister or a solicitor or an academic lawyer, or you may want to work for a private company. Try to do your research in a field that may be useful for you in the future. For me, I've been researching territorial disputes, either in theory or in practice, for more than 10 years. I have 7 degrees. I did my LLB. I didn't know I wanted to do international relations. One of my 2 master's degrees is in international relations. And then I did my PhD And I had a hybrid PhD. I combine legal philosophy, which is my other expertise, and public international law. My advice to you, because I did have a clear idea where I wanted to go. I wanted to have a global career. And I wanted to put a solution not to one territorial dispute, but to all territorial disputes, at least in theory. So I didn't want my research to be about the Falklands, Malvinas, because I come from Argentina, or about Kashmir, because it may be more interesting. No, I wanted my research to be theoretical, and now I can apply my theory to different territorial disputes. That's why I'm throwing to you. Try to think carefully what kind of topic you want to research, because this may have to do with your future professional life. Whether you are a barrister, whether you are a solicitor, or whether you are an academic lawyer. The rest, chapters, deadline, and so on, I will mention later, my next lecture and the last lecture with you. And the deadline, again, you will meet your supervisor first, so by then they will let you know the final deadline. Again, for your final dissertation. With you will only do the first step, the research proposal. Supervision. Again, once we finish this module, we should have block, block 4. Damien, the head of the LLM degree, will be in touch with you, and he is the person who will allocate your supervisor. Usually you will have only one supervisor per LLM candidate. With a PhD, we tend to have 2, sometimes 3 in exceptional cases. So you will have a very close relationship with your supervisor. Advice here, and if I'll try to remember to tell you the same in my next lecture and the final lecture. This relationship is 2 ways. What do I mean by that? You will have to be pushing, between inverted commas, being politely, your supervisor. Some people are very prompt in terms of replying to their emails, are very good at setting meetings. Some are not. This is your work. According to our regulations at Manchester Law School, you will have to meet your supervisor at least once, and they are supposed to meet you between 5 and 8 times. How often you meet with your supervisor, how often you send them resources. Again, this is part of our regulations. We are meant to read only one of your chapters. That is our regulations. My latest LLM student, I had him last academic year, 2019-2020. I read most of her dissertation before submission, several times. This is the kind of relationship you have to build with your supervisor. Yes, my regulations here at Manchester Law School asked me to read only one chapter. He needed more help. He's an excellent student, by the way. He got an 80 or 80 plus, I can't remember. And his expertise had to do with mine, legal philosophy. He's a very hardworking person as well. He wanted to see me more often. I was busy at some point, so we scheduled quite a few meetings using Teams, Zoom, emails, and so on. So again, this relationship, 2 ways. Do not wait for your supervisor to contact you. It is up to you to lead your dissertation. It is up to you to lead your research proposal. It is up to you to lead your work. In the same way, it is up to you to ask your supervisor to have meetings and to read your work. Regulations state we have to have, I'm talking about my colleagues, up to 8 meetings. We know that. I had more than 8 meetings with my LLM student. Regulations state at Manchester Law School, we are meant to read 1 chapter for you. It's up to you and the supervisor to discuss these kind of issues. Yes. The other thing I would suggest, keep meeting records. If you can, write minutes, not for your supervisor, for you. I had a meeting with my LLM candidate. He finished now and he wants to do a PhD with us. And I had a meeting last week with him. I was in Argentina, he was in the UK. We set up the meeting, and the meeting went well. Next thing I know, on Saturday or Friday, I got an email from him with the minutes. He wanted to check whether the meeting, went well according to all the meetings he took, just to, for his own records. That is good work. Yes, I read the minutes today, and I sent the okay today to him. It is up to you, how you want to do your research. You're already professionals. I'm simply stating the obvious, yes? This is your research, this is your dissertation, this is part of your work. Take this as seriously as you want. Do not expect your supervisor to do things for you. You should lead the supervision. So if you want to meet your supervisor, send them an email. If any problem, you should be fine with your supervisor. But however, if any problem, they don't reply for whatever reason, you don't get the comments on time, Damian, send an email to Damian Matter, LLM lead, and ask him. If not, send an email to me, and I'll put you in touch with Damian or whoever I need to put you in touch. Yeah, you have my contact details, you have Damian's details as well. It should be fine. And now, how you do your research? I use this slide, for my presentation, my latest book last year. I don't know if you're familiar. How are we? Yes, with this story. This story comes from India. 6 blind men meet for the first time, bumped into for the first time with an elephant. All of them start touching the elephant, and one of them touches the skin, and he says, well, this feels, very large. The elephant may have the shape of a wall. Someone else may touch, the tail, and he may say, this is not a wall. This seems to be a rope. So it may be a very thin and long animal. Someone else says, yeah, it is long and thin, but touching the trunk. But it's more like a snake rather than a rope, and so on. So what I'm trying to say, all these people, all these blind men were right, when they refer to a particular point about the elephant, but they were all wrong in terms of the elephant as a whole. And I, put some other examples here, but the lesson behind this, you will do research about a very specific issue within the law. Try to, less is more, that's the kind of advice I put, especially at Manchester Law School. I don't know why they have this kind of tendency to talk and talk and talk, about many things without saying too much. It's easier and better, for any academic work to have a very narrow, very sharp focus. You are not talking about the law. I don't want PhDs or LLM talking about what is law. It's just, you need literally library. What you need to do is to think of a very particular point within the law, a very particular issue, a very particular problem, a very particular gap. Again, apply common sense. You have only 10,000 words, the final result. You should be able to combine everything, all in 10,000 words. It will go very, very, very quickly. So try to, if you're thinking of doing further research, there will be plenty of time for that. If you do a PhD, if you do future publications. But assuming I'm going to talk about my own research, you may have a unidimensional view, yes, you may include only one particular science law, or you may have a multi-dimensional view. This has to do with the methodology. The main advice behind, these two choices, the unidimensional view, law only, or UK law only, or Italian law only, or not even here, let's say local law. We talk about a particular case law decided here, let's say a Crown Court in a particular, area, let's say Manchester. Or you want to change the perspective and offer a multi-dimensional methodology and view, like I do with my work. I apply methodology coming from law, political science, and international relations. In any case, whether you want to go for a unidimensional or a multidimensional, my advice here, go, in particular for LLM dissertation, go for a very narrow, very precise issue, problem, a gap, whatever you want to do your research about. I hope this is clear. And again, when we have the questions and answers, we can, go deeper here. But again, you are not researching about law. This is too broad. You are not researching about criminal law or civil law. You are not researching about murder. You have to be more specific, in terms of your research. Then yes, you can apply one method related to law, or you can apply several methods related to several sciences. That is the methodological choice, yes? Nothing to do with the nature of your research or with the particular theme you're researching. Similar here. My kind of research has to do with law, and I tend to bring law to into the reality. I tend to go for case studies, and then I make my own axiological evaluation. Whether it's right or wrong, whether we should include moral values or not. That is my own kind of research. However, you may only, this is a sort of pie. You may only take a piece of this pie, and your research may focus only on legal norms, rules, technically talking in legal philosophy. There are many different norms. For the one that did Law and Society, the old Law and Society with me when I used to be the unit leader, not the new one. You may have normative systems such as law, religion, and morality. There are many more, games, sports, etiquette, and so on. Your research may have to do only with norms of a particular kind. You may include norms that have to do with law, norms that have to do with religion, norms that have to do with morality. Assuming FGM, female genital mutilation, I may do my complete research about female genital mutilation or assisted suicide or forced marriages. And I may use three normative systems: law, morality, and religion. So I am using only normative research about a particular issue. However, I may want to bring statistics about this particular research. That is when I refer to the facts behind my normative research. I may go even with more precision, and I may talk only about normative research. I'm going to talk about only one kind of normative system, law, and I may talk about one particular jurisdiction. So I'm not going to talk about facts, and I'm not even going to talk about the morality behind these facts. I may talk about a particular statute here in the UK. Yeah, that will be a highly normative legal research. Do we see what I mean? So the way you do your research, it's up to you. The way you apply the methodology is up to you. You want to include only law, you will do a normative research of the kind of black letter law research. You may include any other normative systems, morality or religion. That's another kind of methodology. You want to include any kind of factual information, that's again your choice. My recommendation, again, as I said before, regardless of your choice, the way you want to approach your research, be very precise about the kind of issue you want to research about, the kind of issue you want to solve, the kind of gap you want to complete. And then you make all these decisions, yes? Whether you want to do your research only in law and refer to a particular jurisdiction, a multidimensional, whether you want to incorporate different sciences to your own research, and whether you want to have only a legal research or whether you want to incorporate anything else. Brackets here. All choices are perfectly fine. Don't think because you are going to add more sciences or more angles, your research will be better. No. I've seen very, very thorough, very good research only centered on black letter law. Yes, I've seen very, very bad research only centered on black letter law. The choice is completely yours. I'm just trying to show you that there are different choices. And because you will write this dissertation, the choice is yours. Not mine, not your supervisor's choice. We can only advise you, because we have more experience. But in reality, you are the writer, you are the author. I'm going to talk about my own work. I published already several books globally, but I'm going to refer to, my last one, the one in green, Territorial Disputes and State Sovereignty. Can we see the title? So, I can see already the front page, and I can see already clearly that my book will be about a particular issue and a particular concept within that issue. The issue, territorial disputes, and the main concept I will discuss, state sovereignty. I'm talking about the complete book. Without the final bibliography, my book is 90,000 words long. So it's 9 times what you're expected to write. Yeah? And I'm still very precise with the title. And I'm going to talk about international law and politics. That is my subtitle. Because again, my main areas have to do with law, politics, and international relations. So my subtitle already targets the audience I want to talk to. I want to refer to. I've done presentations in schools of law, political science, international relations, and philosophy all around the world. Do we see? The title is very clear, and then the subtitle gives me a sort of frame. Again, that's my kind of title. And again, I'm telling you, 90,000, the book without the final bibliography. It's probably more than 100,000 words. And I'm going to show you how I did. I think this is chapter 3, if I'm right. Yes, chapter 3. I took one concept. I could talk about the book, on and on, but just to put an example, I'm not talking about my own work. I'm using my own work to put an example. This chapter has to do with a key concept, for all my book. I'm going to apply this concept later on in all the chapters. So in order to do that, I need to bring conceptual clarity, conceptual precision. I did my research. I have pages and pages of bibliography for that particular, chapter. And I did my research thinking of 2 main sciences, law and political science. What I did, I deconstructed that element, sub-elements, population, territory, and government, and I used, again, mainly law, the theories, and political science. What I did with each of these elements, I did exactly the same. What does law, what does political science tell me about population, territory, and government? And then I reviewed, examined each of the theories for this particular concept state in terms of law. So all the theories that are already available, if you are going to study public international law, these are the theories you will see in your books. And then I did the same with political science. What kind of theories refer to the state in political science? Do we see what I did? Yes. So the complete chapter has to do, and my chapter was about 10,000 words without the bibliography. So I used 10,000 only for one concept related to law, related to political science, and deconstructed that particular concept in terms of elements and theories. Again, this for you should be your complete dissertation. One of my chapters has to do with the limit you have for your complete dissertation. Again, I wanted to show you what I mean by that. And of course, each of my chapters has a dedicated introduction, and each of my chapters has a dedicated conclusion. I'm going to recommend you to do the same. Each of your chapters should have a dedicated brief introduction, and each of your chapters should have a dedicated brief conclusion. Let me see. Now I'm going to go to the elements I'm going to cover with you in the seminar next week. I'm hoping so far it's clear. We had a rough introduction, a broad introduction, the assessment, Friday, the 26th of February, and the complete structure I expect from you. I cover some of these points with my own work, and the rest of the session today, yes, perfect. I should spend now 30 minutes to 45, probably, talking about the very first element we will cover next week. The title, the objectives, the aim, and the bibliography. So, in basic terms, what you want to research, what you want to achieve, and how, yes? So what kind of problem you want to solve, and how. you should have covered. Let me know if you have questions. If open your mic, the written questions, I'll address them later. Legal research, you should have covered last term basic legal research. And I'm not going to talk about this again. It would be a waste of your time and my time. You should by now know how to locate legal resources using legal databases. The basic ones you should know, how to use by now. I mean, you should have known this, when you did your LLB degrees. If you do have any problem, let me know. Don't be shy. I can teach you myself, or I can put you in touch with the right people, like Corinne, Stephen, or any other. Some of the sources you may find, in addition to the library, Westlaw and LexisNexis. The university pays for these search engines. In reality, you pay to the university and we pay on your behalf, so feel free to use them. However, this is not the only thing you can do in terms of how to do research, and these are not the only means to do research, even in law. The databases are here, the manual users are here. Again, read through this if you have any problem. If you still have questions, ask me. I'm more than happy to show you how to use Westlaw and LexisNexis. By now, you should know how to use them. Don't be shy. For whatever reason you may not know, we have international students. We have people who are coming from other institutions. The platform should be equal, to you all, and the starting line should be equal to you all. This is one of my main objectives, as a teacher, and it's been always, not because I'm part of Manchester Law School. It has to do with my own way of, teaching. So if you do struggle for whatever reason, let me know. I'm more than happy to show you how to use these sources. Now, my recommendation, go beyond. My recommendation for research, social research method has to do with this Oxford University Press book. And if you want to get that book, let me know, because I can ask Oxford to send a voucher or something like that, to get a discount. I don't get anything out of this. It's simply because I think it is the best for you. If your ambition is to do an LLM, a thorough LLM, or in the future a PhD. Why? Because they don't stick with legal research only. Of course, these books cover legal research because law is a social science. However, you can go beyond. And I think that these books offers you, what you need. It's online, and so you may have ebooks or a hard copy. I have both, the ebook and the hard copy. You may be in any other country. Again, you may use LexisNexis and so on. I use myself Google Scholar, not the regular Google, the Google Scholar app, or online, and you will have one of the most comprehensive academic search engines in the world, and one of the most powerful. Why I'm saying anywhere in the world? Because you will have access to most of these sources, either if you're in Pakistan, India, Middle East, Germany, Brazil, or Colombia. Some of these sources are not for free. Many of these sources you will find are for free. And there are techniques. If you use Google Scholar and you go to the advanced search, you can even select the format. You can select the Word format. You can select the PDF format, and then you will see, the complete article. Again, some of these databases, when you use Google Scholar and you use your MMU login details, you will, even though it seems you may have to pay because you are paying through MMU, you will still have access, to the results on Google Scholar. So if you've never used it, try to use it, because trust me, you will find much more and in more detail than with LexisNexis and the others. Another one that I used to use, I still use, not that as often, when I did my own PhD, Web of Science. Check online, Web of Science is a search engine. And again, a very comprehensive search engine, and it will give you elements from law as well as many other sciences. JSTOR, most of their articles are for free. They have articles from all around the world. And again, the kind of articles they publish are all peer-reviewed. One of the best places in which you may find sources from all around the world. One thing I want to say, I guess here we have international students and you speak other languages, rather than English. You may use as well international sources. The only thing you will have to do with your footnotes, in the quotation, if you are doing the translation yourself, you will have to tell, in the footnote that this is your own translation. I'm used to using, sources in Portuguese, in Italian, in Spanish. So you may use, because sometimes these sources are not translated. Don't think, that your language skills cannot be used. In fact, they would enrich, your research in English. It is up to you, sometimes when there is no translation, to do the translation. The only thing, for your reader, because every translation can be literal, or you may apply, a bit of a subjective way of translating. Sometimes we may translate using the literal translation or the sense behind the translation. That is why, if you do the translation between, in your footnote, make clear to be very assertive and explain that this translation is from the author, which is you. Yeah. And one of the easiest and best way, go to the library. We have several very good libraries in the UK. You have the Manchester Metropolitan University Library. However, next door you have one of the best libraries in this country, the University of Manchester Library, one of the most comprehensive physical libraries in this country. I mean, you can visit Oxford, you can visit Cambridge. They are very good as well. But again, you have Manchester Met and you have the University of Manchester Library. I used to spend days at the library. Whether physically you may not be able to because of the lockdown, you still may be able to use the search engines online. All the libraries right now have online search engines. And if you find a book, let's assume you find a book next door at the University of Manchester Library, you contact Corinne or Stephen, Law Library at MMU, and they may ask for an interloan, for your book. So you may be able to read a book that is, at the University of Manchester. Why? Because you can ask our law libraries to ask for a loan to another university. So there are ways. What I'm trying to say, don't limit yourself to, let me go back. Don't limit your research to Westlaw, LexisNexis, or the MMU library. There are many, many more ways to do social research. And even if you want to do only legal research, again, use Google Scholar, Way of Science, JSTOR, and any other libraries, not only MMU. Sources and references. I was thinking, when I'm talking about bibliography here, I refer very briefly to search engines. What do you do with your sources? My way of doing research, and you may have your own way. So I'm going to offer my own practical, steps. Briefly, when I'm doing my research on state, what I tend to do, if I have a PDF, I save my PDF. I usually have a pen drive. I save all my draft in 3 formats, or 3 different ways. I use a pen drive because it's easier for me, when I travel. I have an external hard drive, so that is my second copy. I update that one every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, depending on how much I'm writing. And then I have a dedicated email address. It's my database email address, and I send every new document, not necessarily my bibliography, my draft, to that email address, especially if I'm writing a book or if I'm writing my PhD dissertation. I remember I had that email. It is not my own email address. I created my own personal address is Yahoo. I created a dedicated Gmail address, I don't know how long ago, more than 10 years ago. And every draft I have, I save using my pen drive, I save using my hard drive, and I send using my Gmail account. Why I do that? Because your pen drive may go wrong. your laptop may be broken for whatever reason, you always have the safety of having more than one copy. In terms of your bibliography, what I will do, simply keep the ones you want to use more often handy, which I mean the PDF, pen drive, only one copy is enough. The ones you only need a paragraph, a sentence, when you're reading your books or when you're reading your online sources, let's say a paper, 40 pages long, and you only need a sentence, copy and paste, use always between inverted commas, copy and paste so it's clear, it's a quotation, and simply put all the details you will need in the future. You don't need them in order, right now. That's how I do my research. I tidy all my format, the Scholar format. I'll refer to that later, usually before submission, even for books. But what you want to have always, name, surname, the complete title of the book or the paper, the academic paper, when it was published, by whom, let's say Oxford University Press, 2017, 2019, 2020, and then this is important because you don't want to go back, to that paper or that book. Put the page or the page range. The page, if you are, quoting a particular sentence or a paragraph. If you will refer later to a particular section, a particular chapter, or a particular set of pages, put the page range. And again, I'm only doing my research, so you will see my research, and I'm going to have pages and pages and pages of sources only. That's probably one of the first steps I do, my literature research, even when I'm writing a book. I'm used to now, so I may be writing in parallel another chapter or 2 or 3 chapters in one go, the draft. But what you want to do for each chapter, you will have a separated section, the bibliography, and you keep on copying and pasting quotations, sentences, and always indicate whether, after, below the quotation or using footnotes, the complete details you will need in the bibliography. You will do yourself a favor because then when you are writing your dissertation, you don't need to go back, to all these sources. Trust me, when you invest 6 months, 12 months writing the same document, you don't want to go back to all these sources. And some of them you may not find. If you are going to use online resources, make sure you copy the link, paste the link, put as many details as possible, and make sure for your own information, you will need that for the format, but for your information, the date in which you had access. Suppose I'm doing my research now, I would put access, today is the 11th. The 11th of the 1st, 2021. The 11th of January, 2021. You don't need to have the same format in terms of referencing, in terms of block, font, whatever. This can be very untidy. You only see this, the result of your research. You have time to tidy all this later. Do not waste time editing or tidying this. There are other ways, and there are sometimes here at MMU trainings, EndNote, is one of them. This kind of system do automatically your references. I don't use them myself. I do all my footnotes, all my bibliographies, on my own. I don't tend to use. I know how to use them. I don't use these systems. It is up to you to use them. They put literally these systems combined and automatically. You have to save each of the sources individually once, and then when you use them again, this system like EndNote will automatically use the sources for you. I don't find them useful particular. I know some of my colleagues do. This is a very personal choice. If you know how to use them, good. If you feel they are fine, use them. If you don't know how to use them and you want to explore them, let me know, and I can ask Damien, to have a dedicated seminar about this, because we do have training sessions how to use them. Again, practical steps, as I said, store all your bibliography, at least, a Word document, quotations, and in the footnote or below the quotation, where that quotation is coming from. If you want to save the complete article, the PDF or the Word, format, these two are the best options. You will need a scholar, which is the Oxford way of referencing academic sources. When you're drafting, I mean, if you get used to do it, my way of doing things, I don't use Scholar, I don't find it useful. For my own writing, because I publish globally, I use Chicago style. I find it much easier, and again, it has a global reach. Scholar is very insular. However, if you want to use Scholar, because you must use Scholar, at MMU, you may do it when you are, gathering, your sources, or you may do it at a later stage. My own way of doing things, I do my research. In parallel, I write my chapters, my abstracts, my papers, and only, before submission, I tend to tidy everything. What I mean, if I'm talking about a book, I give myself 2 weeks probably. If I'm talking about a dissertation like yours, I would give myself 2-3 days to tidy the complete. It's very boring, and it will change. That is why, I'm telling you, you may do it right at the end. You don't want to be wasting time doing this, because it can be very boring and very slow, to be tidying your referencing every time you change your draft. So that's why my advice to you will be, write your draft, in particular your final dissertation. Write your draft, final dissertation, you finish with 10,000 words, do your, edit your work, and write before you submit, tidy all, the footnotes and the bibliography in using the correct format. The thing I must insist, save, use a separate document or your own, dissertation. It could be a live document. Make sure you have all your sources. You don't want to go back to the sources a year later. Scholar, how to use them, and the kind of format. I've already put the links you will need, and how to use EndNote. For the ones who are interested in using EndNote, there is already a self-explanatory guidance. So feel free, to check them. If not, let me know. I'm more than happy to do it for you. Or if not, I'll ask Damien, if we can have dedicated training sessions on EndNote. The sources. I want to take a minute or two. If I'm drafting, I am going to use quotations. It makes my life much easier. Now, if I'm going to write my chapter, my dissertation, my book, my paper, avoid at all costs quotations. Unless the quotation is necessary, it's central to your work, do not use quotations in full. Try to paraphrase. And I think it's something they teach here at Manchester Law School. I've never seen it before. I've seen papers here. I remember seeing them in primary school. But I've seen papers here, quotations after quotations after quotation. What I tend to call, when I'm writing, when I'm doing the marking, a collage of quotations. That is not a good academic paper. The only thing you prove when you put a quotation after a quotation after a quotation is you can read, you can search, and you can copy, and you can paste. So 4 very basic functions. Yes, we're asking you to do something else. You're already LLM students, LLM candidates. You should be able to read, to search, to copy, and to paste. We know that. Yeah. What you should do is, when you have a quotation, unless, suppose my complete dissertation, let's say my book, my book is about territorial sovereignty. And I told you one of my complete chapters is about state, yes? Because the definition of the state is so central, and it comes from public international law, it's the Montevideo Convention back in 1930s. Because the definition of the state is so central, that is the only quotation I'm going to use in the complete chapter. Yes, because I don't want to be paraphrasing that central quotation. The rest of the chapter will be about examining that quotation. Yeah, only one quotation for the complete chapter. Am I clear? So if your research is about murder, rape, female genital mutilation, you may include a quotation, because then your complete dissertation may be about the analysis about how wrong the definition is, or whether there is a gap. Yeah, am I clear? But the rest, if you are going to refer, because that's how you you get a high mark. You will have pages and pages of research. What you do with these sources, yes, you don't quote them, you paraphrase. What do I mean by paraphrase? With your own terms, with your own vocabulary, you try to tell us what this author, let's say Nunez, myself, what Nunez is trying to tell the reader about territorial dispute and paraphrase the quotation coming from my book. What you do, finish that sentence or that paragraph full stop, and then in the footnote, you refer to my book, that particular source. Yeah, am I clear? So when you are using quotations, you may use them when you are drafting, when you are doing your, the first part, your literature review, you are gathering information. That is the end. When you are actually writing your chapters and your dissertation in particular, or any academic paper, yes, avoid quotations at all costs unless they are incredibly necessary. It doesn't look good to have a collage of quotations, yes? Unless the other exception could be as well. I'm talking about state, yeah? And to put the same example, and I'm telling you, international law has one definition, public international law. It may be the case that you want to compare and contrast the definition in a particular jurisdiction or from a particular dictionary. Well, I may use 2, 3 quotations. Why? Because I am going to compare, contrast, and assess the different definitions of one particular concept. That is, one of the very few exceptions in which you may use more quotations. Again, I'm talking about 1, 2, 3 quotations top. Yes. If a different section of that particular chapter talks about population, and there is a well-known, well-established definition about population that I must quote, of course I may include further quotations. But again, the rule, try to avoid quotations unless they are extremely necessary. If you are going to use somebody else's sources, you will have to always, refer to them, because if not, this is plagiarism. And I'm not talking about plagiarism because you had a session with math. You have to make evident, whose sources you're talking about, even when you are paraphrasing, yes? Because these are not your ideas, these are somebody else's ideas. So 2 things, try to avoid quotations, use them only when necessary, and even in case of quotations and paraphrasing somebody else's work, full stop, footnote, yes? You have to include the details, of the author, where this theory, this idea, this analysis is coming from, unless the analysis, the idea, the argument is yours, yeah? Plagiarism, I'm not going to refer to this, but the guideline is here. When you talk about somebody else's work, you must include the relevant details. You cannot simply copy and paste somebody else's idea, even when you're paraphrasing. If you copy in full quotation, you must include the sources. If you are paraphrasing somebody else's idea, you must include the sources. Turnitin. I had a question earlier today. One of my students, I'm the unit leader, sorry, for the LLM Public International Law Unit. We had the assessment last week, the deadline, and the submission. And someone was asking me because the Turnitin similarity percentage was high. Don't worry. If you do the things properly, if you use quotations, if you paraphrase, and you use, the sources in the right format, so you're not, using, copying and pasting without identifying the source, or paraphrasing somebody else's work without admitting, it's not your work, you shouldn't have any problem. Sometimes the percentages in Turnitin are high simply because your bibliography is so rich, that the Turnitin, is informing us exactly that you are using many sources. However, if you do things in the right way, in the right manner, you simply may have a very high Turnitin similarity percentage because you are using several sources, which in fact is good. Yeah. Again, quotations, keep them to the bare minimum. Quotations, including the footnotes and the bibliography, the right sources, the information, and paraphrase. Avoid quotation, paraphrase. And even when you are paraphrasing, include the relevant details in terms of the sources, both in the footnote and in the bibliography. Let me see. Critical reading. Now, by now you should know how to read an article, a book, even a newspaper article, and get the core idea. Why that article is important to you. I'm going to take very few minutes here just to, to set a task for you. There is a guideline here I put, I don't think you are going to need this, but University of Leicester, there is a guideline about, critical reading. My advice when you are going through, let's say, Google Scholar. I mentioned Google Scholar. And I put, again, how you target, a search. There are many ways, but I put between inverted commas, state sovereignty. If I don't put inverted commas, Google Scholar will give me every source with both concepts, either together or individually. If I want, the precise concept, I'm going to put between inverted commas, state sovereignty. Even I do state sovereignty, I may have more than 1 million sources. Am I going to use all of them? No. What I'm going to use, and am I going to read all of them? No. What you need to do is to skim through them and read usually the abstract, yeah? And read from the title to the kind of publication. I am going to, that's how I do my own research as well. I want quality research. When I mean quality, international quality research. So what you want to do, make sure the particular article or the particular book, because Google Scholar, to use that example, will give you as well books and book recommendation. And check the publisher and whether, if you are talking about an academic paper, whether that particular journal is peer-reviewed. It takes a second. You will get used to it. Instead of a second, it may take 5 minutes, to you. Again, with more time and more practice, it will be second nature because you will learn to recognize the good journals. So my advice to you, you do your research using LexisNexis, the libraries, Google Scholar, Web of Science, any search engines. You will have several sources very quickly, the title and the abstract to see the relevance, because some of the articles will be not relevant. And to the ones, because of the title and the abstract, you think they are relevant, go to the article and see whether it's been published by a good journal. How do I know it's a good journal? First of all, if we know the author, and second, and most of all, whether that particular academic journal has certain credentials, one of them being peer-reviewed. Yeah. When I talk about the author, I would say, question mark. And I always put myself as an example, not to, to hurt somebody else's feelings. I publish in at least 3 languages, Spanish, Russian, and English. And I publish with, very good houses, let's say Routledge, a global house, Oxford University Press, and so on. But then I have my own blog. Again, to publish my book, the latest, it took me more than a year, again, from scratch, the book proposal, to finally have, a year and a half. The first one took me a bit longer. It had to go the proposal through peer revision. It may come rejected, or it may come with recommendations and so on. Papers are the same. I tend to have my papers rejected. I send them to other publishers and so on. Even if they are accepted, they may come with recommendations. It takes a long process, to get published in academia. If you go through good academic journals and good publishers, again, international standards I'm talking about. Now, my own blog, it takes me, I don't know, 10 minutes, 30 minutes to write a blog post. Same author, Jorge Nunez, same credentials, same reputation. However, I will recommend you to use my blog, yes, as an academic source. It will have my opinion. However, no one will check whether, no one will review my opinion. I may have comments on my blog, but again, they may agree or disagree, but no one is making the quality sure, Am I clear? That is why in academia, it's so hard to get papers published in top journals, because they have to go through filters in order to be published. Peer revision, trust me, many hurdles. So once again, the author you may know. However, check even if you know the author, even if the author had very good reputations in the disciplines, science you talk about, even in that case, check the publisher as well. Yes? Whether that author has published with a publisher a certain kind of reputation. Let me see. So again, my way of reading will be title and abstract, and only if I think they are good, a good fit for my research, then I go the author, and mainly, to decide whether I'm going to add that, the quality of the academic journal or the publisher. Let me see. No, this is whether it's, it's argumentative or descriptive. This is part of your own critical analysis. I'm not going to explain this. The only thing I'm going to say, what we are asking you to do for an LLM, what I was telling you, when you do your research, you know how to copy, you know how to paste, you know how to read and search. Those are the basics: remembering, understanding, maybe applying. Yeah. What we're asking you to do at LLM level is to analyze, if it's possible, evaluate. The creating, the top of this pyramid has to do with the PhD level. So you see a gap, you offer your solution. You see a problem, you offer a new method, to solve this problem, or you apply already existing methodology, to solve a problem, and so on. So what we're asking you to do at LLM level, it's, between analyzing and evaluating. Yes, you will have to assess that particular research against the problem you find. That particular, source against the issue you want to solve. That particular, book, again, that comes from your academic research, and how you may offer an angle, in terms of that gap or that problem. That is why you read with purpose. What I'm going to, let me see, here. What I'm going to, because I like to use 15 more minutes, to talk about something else. But before I move, to the next point, read, I already put a Word document on Moodle, and I put only, I think, 2 exercises for Wednesday. And I'm going to tell you on Wednesday what to do next. But for Wednesday, I'm going to ask you to start researching about your particular problem, your particular research area, the particular issue you want to write about. And at least, you should be able to find 1 article. If you can find more than 1, I would say not 3, for Wednesday, but at least 1. Write down very briefly, not more than 250 words, excluding footnotes and bibliography, because I like to see, the footnote and the bibliography. If you want to try or Scholar, try it as well. But I'd like to see the main point from that particular article, that particular book, you found because of your research. Bring here a summary, 250 words from that particular, piece of writing. Evaluate the publication. We'll do an exercise. I'll probably put, you to work in pairs, and then we'll do a brief presentation for the one that want to do a presentation, the extrovert. For the introvert, I have another plan. But again, the ambition for next week, you should start, doing your research, and you should at least find 1 source, ideally 3 sources, and you should at least write 250 words for 1 of the articles. If you can come up with 3 different summaries, even better. Yeah. Until I'm going to be asking you, be ready, but I'm going to be asking you, for the ones who want, to share with us, why you went for that article and not any other, why that article is good in comparison to any other, what kind of academic journal or what kind of publisher published that particular article or book, and so on. Yes. So what I'm going to be asking all of you, why this is a good quality article, book, and so on. So this is one of the things you have to do for, again, a week on Wednesday. Let me see. And again, consider, I'm not going to talk about this because I already talked, about the author, whether it's current, and so on. This is up to you. Let me see. Good. So the rest of the session today, and I'm going to be using probably 10 more minutes here. Title, aim, and objectives. We cover bibliography, sources, and search engines. The title. This is my advice to you. You do whatever you want. But the title for me should be about something that is of your interest. I wouldn't do any research, let alone a PhD, or an LLM dissertation about something that I'm not interested in. Your interest, you may have a passion about that particular issue, or it may be simply, a practical issue, very pragmatic. You want to be a barrister, and you clearly know what kind of area of law you want to have, you want to have an expertise, so you do a research on that particular area. Nothing wrong with that, yes? Again, my advice is not only you may not enjoy reading. Sometimes I don't enjoy my reading, however, something that either, because philosophically you have an interest, or in a pragmatic way, it will be useful for your future, go for something you want to spend time, reading and writing about. Whether current academic and professional literature, I'm not going to talk about that because it will take me too long, but there may be historical research as well, very good historical research. One of my papers has to do with the concept of sovereignty. It's an early paper of mine. And I started with a research on Herodotus and the Histories, a book written more than 2,000 years ago. So how current, it will have to do with your own research. You may do historical research, and you may, I refer in my book to the Bible as well. So it depends, what kind of research you want. If you want the current research, yes. You are going to talk about black letter law, it should be current. What I'm trying to say, whether you do a historical, a chronological historical research or not, it's your choice. I put here Bibliography, one of the other books from Salter and Mason, writing law dissertations. You may not read this, or you may complete the task. I'm going to throw this to you. You should have a sort of idea, at least right now, I guess that's why you are doing the LLM, of the kind of thing of a professional you want to be, right now. That is why you are going to be writing a dissertation. I'm assuming here most of you, if not all, you already have an inclination what kind of paper you will want to write in the future, what kind of book you want to read and write in the future, what kind of problem you want to solve. So I'm going to ask you, to think of. I put here mandatory for the next class. This is my second exercise. Sorry, not next class, the seminar next week. The second exercise. Take your idea, your ambition, your passion, your interest, and turn it into a problem, a one-sentence problem. Yes. So in my case, would be current remedies in international law do not work in order to solve territorial disputes. That is the problem. We have many, we have a menu, I have a chapter, we have a menu of, in terms of organizations and remedies that are there to solve territorial disputes. And we still have Jerusalem, we still have Kashmir, we still have Gibraltar, Tibet, Crimea, Northern Ireland, Brexit. So these problems are not being solved. So the organizations do not work properly, the remedies are useless. So that's my problem. Why am I going to ask you to think of a problem? So think of your passion, your interest, the ambition you have, and think what kind of problem, I have there, or what kind of problem has the law there, what kind of problem has this particular community, female genital mutilation, whatever. Write it into a sentence. Why I'm doing this? Because then I'm going to ask you next time when we meet on Wednesday to try to solve that problem. That is your dissertation. So the way you solve that problem will have to do with the title. Yes. So in my case, I got that the main problem with territorial dispute is the concept of state sovereignty. That is why the title of my complete book is Territorial Dispute and State Sovereignty. Yes. And then I'm going to ask you to write the other things, aims and objectives. What is an aim? And again, this is part of the theory. An aim is only a statement indicating the general, purpose of the research. The objectives are more specific. I'm going to go here because this is my own slide. When you think of your aim, again, I was talking about the task for you for next Wednesday. Think of the problem, write a sentence. Then try to think of, when you see that problem, and again, we'll do that live next week on Wednesday. Try to think, what are you trying to solve? Or are you trying to compare, that problem with, or that jurisdiction with any other jurisdiction? Are you trying not to solve, but to, to examine, to assess, or you don't even want to solve a problem. You may try to argue against a particular position. So tell me what you exactly, and start thinking about what you exactly want to do with that particular problem, a passion, issue you intend to research. I don't need an answer to all of them. I only need your aim, your one answer to all of this. Yes. So in my case, it's clear. My ambition, my aim has always been, to solve not one but all territorial disputes. Tell me what's your ambition. Again, don't think one aim is more important than other. Here, I'm going to suggest, to advise, be very pragmatical. You won't have the space, not even, with a PhD dissertation or a book, let alone, an LLM dissertation. So pick one. Yes, I know you may want to do many things with your ambition, passion, problem, issue. Try to pick one, the main one. What you want to do. That will be your aim. And then depending, that's why it's like a cascade effect. Depending on the problem you want to discuss, research, talk about, write about, yeah, you will have the aim, your kind of solution to that, problem, issue, task, or whatever. And then depending on your aim, yeah, then I'm going to ask you to start thinking of the objectives. How these are more specific. That's, remember, at first I asked you, to write between 3 and 5. On Wednesday, I'm going to ask you to write 3 on the spot. So think of how you're going to achieve that aim. If I'm telling you, as I put the example, I'm going to try to find a solution to all territorial disputes, but by thinking of the concept of state sovereignty, and so on. Yes. So think how you want to achieve that. You will have to have precision, not as precise as the aim. Yes. However, every objective has to have a certain degree of precision, because you cannot simply, if I'm talking about the state, I'm not going to, one of my objectives can never be to assess the relevance of the concept of, I don't know, female genital mutilation. Yes. It doesn't have anything to do with my aim. If my aim is to put a solution to territorial disputes using the concept of state sovereignty, yes, all my objectives will have to do with either the territorial disputes, the solutions, or the concept of state sovereignty. So it would be clear to me that one of my objectives will have to, the third one down here, define key conceptual elements. The second one, suppose, that's part of my research as well. I discovered that there is random, there are random publications in law and political science about state, and they don't agree with each other. Yes. So I'm going to have to consolidate existing bibliography related to 2 different disciplines or 2 different sciences, law and political sciences, and so on. My research is not empirical. That's part of my next steps. Yes. However, I doubt your research will be empirical, and if you are planning to do something empirical, like gathering information, let me know, because we need to follow a different procedure. I'm part of the faculty's ethics committee. So if I did a lecture last term on advanced methods 1. So if you are planning to do empirical research, I will be inclined to say don't do it, because you will need to comply with other procedures. But assuming, I'm writing my PhD or my next book, and I want to do empirical research in Kashmir, yes, I am going to collect data. I will have to comply with procedures. But that will be one of my objectives. Yeah. Again, let me go back here. For next class on Wednesday, the seminar, think of your research idea, your passion, the problem you want to solve, the gap you want to, to fill, and turn it into a sentence, yes, into a sentence problem. Next week, you don't need to do anything about it, but next week I am going to ask you to put that sentence problem into a title, and then from that title, I'm going to ask you to answer one question. How are you going to deal with that title? How are you going to solve that problem? How are you going to fill that gap? That will be your aim, yes? And then I'm going to ask another question. How are you going to fulfill that aim? Yes. Aims and objectives, tip here, they will have to be written in the infinitive. So the aim is to solve, the aim is to compare. The objective will be, to explore, to define, to collect, and so on. Aims and objectives should be written, you may write using a different tense, but ideally, because again, this has to do with international standards, you will write your aim and objectives using the infinitive. Let me see if I want to say something else. Aims and objectives. I put an example. You may talk about, you may read this example. I've already uploaded my slides on the internet. Let's say this one is an example. The project aims to develop an effective response to every child matter agenda. Can you see the infinitive? I'm very precise. I'm paraphrasing, I'm not reading. The objectives: to identify aspects of ECM, to evaluate current practice, to propose ways in which, all in the infinitives, and if you read them thoroughly, you will find that each of these objectives has to do with the main aim. Yes. Can you see the aim is only one sentence, a long sentence, but only one sentence. And the objectives here, I put 4 objectives. Research aim, broad, goal. Yes, objectives are more specific. Usual points I've seen in many dissertations, LLB level, LLM, even PhD, and even published books. You confuse aims and objectives. Remember, you go for, especially for these kind of dissertations, they are very short. Go for one aim and a series of objectives, 3 to 5, I would recommend. And try to avoid ambiguity. What do I mean by that? You don't want to open, an umbrella of, possibilities. What you want to do is to be very precise in both, in terms of the title and in terms of the objective. The aim can be rather broad, as I put here. Yes, rather broad. Not as broad as, the ambition or the aim is to research about the concept of law. Too broad. Broad enough. Yes, broad enough. However, in the case of the title, in the case of the aims, in the case of the objectives, you have to think of a pyramid, yeah, from broader to the narrowest, yeah. So from the broadest, to the narrowest. The title can be the broadest, yeah. So I have a problem. My title offers a kind of take, view, solution, yeah. The aim will have to do with the title and the problem, a narrow sense. And then the objectives are the very specific points to show me how I'm going to achieve my aim, and in that way answer my title. Let me see. So far, and I'm about to finish here. I'll tell you when I stop recording. For next time, today we cover from the structure, the research proposal structure, the title, the aims, objectives, and bibliography. For next time, I want from you, yes, for Wednesday, our workshop, I want from you, take your research idea, passion, problem, gap, turn it into a one-sentence problem. That's the only thing I want from you. Yes, we will write the aims and the objectives on the spot. So at least bring me a problem. And then for the bibliography, at least one article or one book, any source you decide. And I'd like to see from that source written a 250-word document. What I'm going to ask you, both the sentence and these 250 words, from one or from 3 different, documents, I'm going to ask you to do it in 2 different formats. A Word format, so that will be for you, so you keep, that document live. That will be your end research proposal. Trust me, when you finish with me, you will have written your proposal. And, and bring as well, like I did right now, that is why I'm going to use Zoom. Bring as well a PowerPoint. Because I'm going to be working with you on the spot, and for the ones who, I'm not going to push anybody, but for the ones who want to share with the rest, for feedback, even my feedback, I'm going to allow you to share your own screen. So do me a favor, both the sentence problem and these summaries from your research, bring them in 2 formats, Word document and PowerPoint format. Let me see. 2 minutes and then I'm finished. I'm going to have probably 20 minutes for questions and answers. You are all invited. I lead, I mean, we are 8 chairs right now. I lead a discussion group. We meet monthly on Wednesdays. We already have presentations on this January up to April. We will have someone from India, a lawyer, a PhD in law from India in January. February, we will have the dean of the faculty of Durham here in England, talking about climate change and ethics. He will be presenting his latest books. He specializes in legal philosophy, public international law, and human rights. We will have later a colleague from Brazil. He will be presenting a book. It will be his book launch as well, about the constitution in Brazil. And then we will have Professor Bruce Ackerman from Yale University. You should have seen him on Friday. I think it was on the BBC. Very well-known constitutionalist all over the world. He's been advising presidents in America for many years now. So he will be with us in April. We will have as well roundtables about legal philosophy and public international law starting in April with the Congress in September. What I'm trying to say, I organize this event. If you want to be part of this event in which you will find academics presenting their work, either published or unpublished, feel free to come. The discussions right now, they used to be face-to-face. Right now, because of the pandemic, we made the decision to have them online. I represent Manchester. I represent in the group Manchester University and Manchester Metropolitan University. And we have colleagues, again, the other chairs are from Aberdeen, Durham, Hull, Liverpool, Surrey, and Westminster. You are all more than welcome to join us. The discussions are very open. I set the rules. We don't have professors or students. We have one expert talking and all of us being able, to share our comments. And I share in all cases a paper, a draft, or an extended abstract to all the discussion group. If you want to be part of this, because of data protection, please send me an email, and I'm more than happy to add your details to our distribution list. And the other thing I wanted to say, and I know I have Lindsay and Sam, and I'm going probably Lindsay and Sam, to say a few things after, I finish the recording. You are all invited to be part of the Law Journal. It was an idea of 3 of my former students. Arya, he left, now he's doing his bar course with the competition. Lindsay, who is still with us, and Sam, I met them probably 4 years ago now. They were my students at LLB level when we did Law and Society. And they had the idea last year, bringing together the first ever law journal at MMU. I'm very proud of them. Luckily, I'm supporting them. I've been working with them. We are finishing the first edition. The idea and the invitation for all of you, if you want to publish your work, and your dissertation may be a good idea. You cannot publish exactly your dissertation, but trust me, you will be writing quite a lot. So if you want to publish and to get your work published, you may do that with us as well. The benefit, if you come, and publish, we are only asking for an abstract, not more than 500 words. So you can use a similar abstract, you will have for your proposal. And the benefit as well, we will have dedicated workshops and seminars on how to write an academic paper. It's impossible for me to cover this in these sessions about advanced research because I have to, to talk about the research proposal. However, if you intend to follow an academic career, or even as a barrister or as a solicitor, you intend to publish in the future your work in an academic environment, whether the solicitor's journals. I published an article on Brexit last year there. There is a different way to publish, in this kind of informal journals for practitioners, or whether you want to publish for the academic, world, your colleagues in the academia. We can teach you how to do that. We did that last year. We ran a series of workshops and seminars. with someone from Manchester Metropolitan University. He's an expert, you know, how to write academic papers. I did some of the seminars myself, and I invited some of my colleagues here, and the plan was to invite some other colleagues, you know, from other institutions, to offer, you know, their experience, how they write academic papers, books, and so on. Some of them even share with us drafts, so for you to literally how they write on, you know, on the spot their papers. So once again, you will find an announcement on Moodle very soon. We are planning, you know, to run the second edition with Lindsay and Sam. And we are already receiving abstracts for this. So if you are interested in being part of the Manchester Law Journal and publish, more than welcome. From experience, I was part of the first ever law journal at the University of Manchester. My PhD comes from the University of Manchester, and I was part of the editorial board, the very first law journal at the University of Manchester. And they've been running that journal for more than 10 years, I think 9 or 10 years right now. Very successful journal and quoted all over the country. So again, if you want to be part of the second edition, we are right now finishing the first edition. Fingers crossed, you know, soon to be published, and we'll be having a lunch event in which you will all be invited. Send me an email, and I can put you in touch again with the law journal at the MMU, and you can talk directly with Sam and Lindsay. And I think that's it. My details here. If you have any question, let me know, and let me go back to, so we can have questions and answers. I'm going to finish now the recording. Just a second. Let me stop recording.